Lads, we have just put in 15 and a half hours into Stalker 2, and I want to give you my first impressions of the game so far. Let's get started. We are playing on the veteran difficulty, so anything I say here is specific to the hardest difficulty you can choose in the game. Now, do I like the game? Yes, I really, really do like the game. The 15 hours that I've played, I've had a lot of fun. It's my type of game. I like it. If you like, so not a hardcore survival game. It's a shooter with exploration, with light survival mechanics, with bullet economy. You have to like loot, hunt down ammo and things for your weapons. You have to be quite conservative with what you do. If you like that sort of play style, it's for you. There's no RPG leveling up mechanics in the game. The only way you get better in the game is by finding better equipment. And I like that. I prefer that because I think too many games these days try to put leveling up systems in their games. Lads, we just want to go in and shoot things and have fun and explore. That's what this game offers. Now, I have to talk about I wouldn't say it's the elephant in the room. It's the bloody herd of elephants in the room. It's the performance. It's by far the worst part of the game. And simply because of the performance, as much as I like the game, I just can't recommend it. To give you reference, we're using a laptop 11800H processor with a 3070. So when we're talking about desktop performance, we're thinking about an i7 11th gen processor, Intel, with a 3060 or 3060 Ti graphics card. And on those specs, lads, I'm getting at 1080p on low to medium settings in between 40 and 60 frames per second. To give it credit, as much credit as we can give it, I'm being extremely charitable here. Out and about when you're actually in combat situations, we're getting around about 60, so it's playable. In towns and cities, when you don't really need to fight anything, I'm getting around about 40 frames per second. It looks choppy in towns and cities. Um, and I wouldn't even say that the graphics are good enough to warrant such dog shit performance. The game looks like a PS2 game. Lads, I'm sure Project IGI and Delta Force Land Warrior from the early 2000s, late 1990s look better than this game. Lads, the game, at times the game looks good, but I've put all the settings up to max. I think it's called epic quality just to see what it looked like. It the the graphical fidelity to performance is not there. It's really bad. It's poor. It's almost enough for people not to play the game. It's that bad. It's a shame, and it shouldn't have been released like this. Cross my fingers and hope that within my playthrough of the game, because I am going to continue playing the game because I really like it, I hope they patch something just to make it run better, because I imagine this is going to be the worst complaint people have got about the game. Okay, so let's move on. The atmosphere is phenomenal. I just love exploring, being on the edge of my seat all the time because I don't know if I'm going to get jumped by a creature, if we're going to get jumped by enemies, if we go to an outpost, if we're going to find some weird type of anomaly that we don't know how to deal with, that's going to destroy us and make it hard for us to get back to a safe haven. It's really, I would say, on the edge of your seat gameplay. Not like jumping about like a lunatic John Wick style, but it's just surviving like that. Avoiding enemy threats, tackling them head on, like we're doing now with an enemy base, which I didn't actually think this was inhabited, but the enemies, Jesus, there were so many enemies in this base, but we succeeded. There's Aside from the combat, which we'll go into next, there's anomalies in this game, and these anomalies are like weird things. They could be fire anomalies. They're like traps of the environment, and you have to find ways to navigate them. Now, you do have a little bolt thing, which is like an infinite stack, an infinite bag of metal bolts that you can use to throw into things to see if it's safe to go, if you can clear a path to where you're trying to get to. I find that gameplay loop quite rewarding. It doesn't just make it so you're just picking a direction and just running there through nothingness. You do have to be aware of your surroundings at all time, which is which is quite unique because a lot of open world shooter games, you're just running from point A to B with very little resistance. And some of the anomalies are really interesting to deal with. I'm not going to say anything else on the matter because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I enjoy that. So the combat. The combat feels good. I think with a constant 60 frames per second and a high frame rate, the combat would feel excellent. It's nothing too special. It's a slow paced shooter, but I like that style of gameplay. I think it does it well. There's nothing really else to say. I don't think it does anything too special, but it's functional, it works, and I'm having fun with it. Headshots make a nice sound when you hit a headshot. It goes like a squelching noise and you see the blood spurt from the head. Um, but sometimes enemies that don't have helmets on, I've fought an enemy without a helmet on that's took 3 bullets to the head. I don't know if it's a bug, if it's a glitch, if it's meant to happen, but it doesn't feel right. It's infrequent that it happens, but it does happen. But most enemies do die with a headshot unless they're wearing a helmet where it's a 2-tap. It's really good. The exploration. Going on to what we've already said, exploration's good. There's loot to find. You can find new guns. It's interesting. You do have a weight limit. The weight limit your character's got is 80 kilograms. Once you reach 80 kilograms, your movement speed is going to be greatly decreased. So you do have to pick and choose what weapon loadout you're going to take out with you before you leave base, and what you're going to pick up. And on that, let's talk about the loot. You're going to be finding every enemy drops a gun, every enemy's got ammo on them, so you can loot in the ammo economy. While I thought the ammo economy was going to be a struggle, it's not that bad. I've never struggled for bullets in the game, so don't let that put you off, as long as you're looting things and using the correct weapons for the ammo types you're finding. The issue is, every enemy does drop a gun, but most of the guns you find are going to be in red condition, which is classed as the broken condition. You can't do anything, or not anything that I've found yet, within 15 hours of playtime. You can't sell that loot. You can only take the bullets out of those weapons and use that ammo and then just drop red guns. It's a waste of inventory space. Don't do it. You can't do anything with it. When you find quality that's yellow or amber, you can sell those to merchants and you can make a bit of money that way. So those are the type of weapons you're going to be keeping and taking back, and either repairing it to use it yourself if it's a weapon you want to use, or just selling it to the trader. And there's the reason why I'm twisting my face there is because the next thing we're going to talk about is a thing that I'm not sure is actually intended. The other loot that you're going to be finding are things called artifacts. And I haven't really found, bar one, and I'm not going to spoil what it is, an artifact that's usable or does anything great. Most artifacts you find when you equip it increases your radiation level. Like, just over time, it's a constant radiation you get. Now, radiation is really easy to cure. You can just spam bottles of vodka, which are quite frequent. You're not going to run out of vodka in this game. But the effects of these relics, for how hard they are to find, the trade-off doesn't seem worth it. It might just be because I'm early in the game, but it's a bit underwhelming. And the way you find these artifacts is you've got like a little hand scanner thing. And when you're in an area with lots of anomalies, whether those the fire anomalies, lightning anomalies, you kind of like weave your way through a minefield, avoiding them. And eventually you'll find this relic. You can pick it up and you can either keep it, which I wouldn't recommend for most of them, or sell it to the trader in the early game, which is what I've been doing because it's one of the best sources of money early game, although an infrequent source of money. Now let's get on to what I twisted my face about. The actual monetary economy of the game. It doesn't feel right. It feels a bit off. Now, I wouldn't say I've struggled with it, but I think it's a bit too unforgiving. I'll tell you why. So, when you go out into a combat situation, whether you're using the loadout that you like, you're going to be getting into combat, you're going to be taking environmental damage, which is going to be reducing the durability of your equipment from 100% all the way down to completely broken at 0. The arcade that I use, when you fire between 40 to 60 bullets, that takes about 20% durability off the weapon. And it 20% durability on this AK we're using costs at least 2 grand to repair it back up to 100% durability. The armor is wild. 20% durability on armor can cost upwards of 5 grand to repair. And then your other weapon is about the same as the AK. I think the shotgun isn't as bad, and I do like the shotgun. 20% durability on a shotgun is probably going to cost you about 1 grand to repair. And the pistol, I would highly recommend sticking with the starter pistol because it's easy to repair and it does actually do good damage. That's saved my arse a lot of times. The issue is, you go out on a mission, you loot as much as you can up to your encumbrance with all amber weapons that you know you're going to sell and you're not going to keep. You get back home, you'll be lucky if you get 4 grand from that. And that's barely enough just to repair your weapons. Forget about repairing your armor. You can't do it. I don't know if that's intended, but what I've been doing to mitigate that is I've just been letting my armor completely deteriorate. And any new sets of armor we find in the wilderness, I've been putting that in my storage box. And when my armor depletes to 0, I've just been getting rid of it and using the new armor. And you might say, well, why don't you just repair your armor from 0 to 100 so you're not just wasting good sets of armor? Because it's going to cost you about 40 to 50 grand. Well, let's just be charitable. It's going to cost you at least 20 grand to get a base set of armor from 0 durability to 100% durability. And that money's just not, you're not making that amount of money in the game, no matter if you sell all the relics that you find and all of the weapons. And I don't really find that I want to just ferry backwards and forwards from a combat zone we've been in ammo to sell to the trader just to repair my equipment. It doesn't feel right. It might be intended. Like I say, I'm not struggling with it. It just seems strange. But what I will say, I think, is unintended, is sometimes you might find a gun out in the wilderness that's durability is really, really low, and it's a new weapon you're excited to use. I've got weapons sitting in my storage that I can't even see me using within the next 20 hours of playtime. Because it's going to cost me 27 grand to repair this new weapon that I found. One of them is going to cost me 11 grand, which is barely an upgrade of what we're using. Why would I spend that money on a weapon that I don't even know is going to be good when I've got a weapon here that's perfectly fine, that's got very similar stats? I think it penalizes you for wanting to test new weapons out. It could just be because we're in the early game and these weapons we are finding them broken. But yeah, sometimes you do find good weapons in the wilderness that have 100% durability. I would recommend not selling them. I would actually recommend putting them in storage. If you find an identical weapon to what you're using, keep it. Don't sell it. And when your weapon durability gets low, just bin that weapon you're using and start using the 100% durability one, because it's going to cost you less in the long run than repairing your weapon over and over again. It's a bit weird. It took a while for me to figure it out. But yeah, I don't know whether I dislike it, I don't like it. It's unknown. Next, bugs and glitches. I haven't come across any bugs and glitches so far. I've never had any crashes. The game's running pretty stable. That's a good thing. But another thing which I don't know whether it's intended or not, the enemy spawns. We can be running through an area, beelining through a forest, and then we'll get like a indicator that someone's looking at us from behind where we've just came from. There was nobody there. I've just walked through a forest and there's a group of 5 guys there shooting at us. Now, the 4 or 5 times that's happened to us, it's been at night. So I didn't really have good visibility anyway. But normally at night, I walk about with my torch off so we don't get seen. Not only do I think that these enemies I think the game has a timer to keep things interesting. And when that timer ticks down, it just spawns enemies near you. So you have like a combat situation. I don't think there's set enemies in the environment. It doesn't. I've been at the top of a watchtower looking down with a sniper rifle and there's been no one there. And then we went to the zone and enemies have spawned. It's so strange. And on that, which I don't like, I don't think the human enemies play by the same rules as you do. So I'm sitting in the pitch black with my torch off when these enemies have spawned behind me and they haven't quite seen me yet. And I'm hiding behind a tree. And eventually the visibility gets big enough that they've saw me. Lads, I've looked down my sniper scope at them. They're miles away. They've got their torches on. I can see them. They can't see me. The enemies don't play by the same rules you do, which I think, although there is stealth in the game, I don't think it's very viable. It's very undercooked. It's very basic. So I don't really even stealth anymore. I just either confront them head on or run away, take cover, and then fight them that way. But I just don't like the way it feels like the enemy's spawning on you. I haven't got any concrete evidence to prove this. It's just what I've experienced. I'm dying to catch them in the act one time. Maybe when I'm looking somewhere and the enemies spawn in front of us. But I think they're set to maybe spawn behind you or to the sides. It's a bit weird. I can't say for certain that happens. Feel like it does. Now, the last issue of the game I'm going to say is the bullet registration on enemies. I've mentioned that sometimes enemies take a couple of headshots to kill regular human enemies. I don't know if that's just because it's maybe hitting their shoulder or not. But sometimes when you're fighting enemies, mainly happens at range. If you've got a really thin piece of scenery that you know your bullet wouldn't hit, when you're shooting at someone, say behind a railing, we actually experienced it in the middle of this video when I was shooting the sniper in the tower. That's why we went up and knifed him instead. It was because our bullets were hitting the railing when they should have been going past the railing. It seems like even though the railing is graphite thin, if your bullet goes anywhere near it, it connects. So it means that long range combat when enemies are behind cover is a bit jank. Can't say I enjoy that. It needs to tighten up. But other than that, yeah, I like the game. A few other things that you're going to be fighting in the game, which I don't really want to spoil it for you, but the 50% humans, 50% monsters. These monsters, everything we found so far, fights in melee combat. And it seems like the AI is pretty brain dead. It just runs in a direct path towards you. The only time the AI seems like it's doing something clever is if you stand on top of something where the enemies can't get you. They won't just stand there and let you shoot them. They'll go and take cover. I really appreciate that. It makes it seem like they do have some AI. But other than that, all melee enemies just beeline for you. And it's not going to be a spoiler because it's one of the first enemies you fight in the game. But you fight this invisible creature. I think they're called bloodsuckers. I haven't actually figured out a legitimate way to fight them yet. Because it seems they charge you invisible, they attack you, they run away, and then maybe 5 seconds later, 5 to 8 seconds later, they'll do the exact same thing. They're on this set loop. Now, when they run away, it gives you enough time to heal and possibly reload your weapon if you need to and attack it again. But it just seems like you've got to brute force these enemies. I don't think there's any clever way of fighting them other than just unloading shotgun shells into them. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I haven't found a way to dodge them or anything. There's no dodge button in the game. There's no like side jump or anything. It feels a bit Eurojank, and I mean the game is Eurojank. So that's my first thoughts about the game. Unfortunately, I can't recommend it. Not because of the gameplay or things we do, because I'm having immense fun with it. It's just the performance is dog shit. It really needs work. It shouldn't have been released in this state. So there we go, lads. I like the game. I'm going to play it to the end. Just be aware of what you're getting yourself into. If you can get past the performance, I think you will enjoy the game if you like first-person shooters and you don't mind light survival mechanics. Lads, hope you enjoyed the review. See you in the final thoughts, full review, when we finish the game, which I imagine is going to be ages away because, lads, the map's huge. Last thing we mentioned, the map is massive. We've only been into 2 areas so far within 15 hours, and I think there's at least 20 other zones to go to. It's wild. Take care.